Hey guys, so in this video we're going to start looking at making our first color grade. We're going to make a teal and orange look and correct it using the color wheels. So previously we made this little node workflow. I'm going to select this node here and now we're going to make our teal and orange look. So let's right click that, call that teal and orange. And guys, this is a classic split tone that is used a lot in Hollywood. If you want to make your own split tone, have a play around and find something you like. But for this example, we're going to do a classic split tone where maybe we increase the reds a bit in the midtones, and then in the lift or the shadows, we're going to increase the blues a little bit. I can also drag here. Let's take these nodes out for a bit. And guys, so yeah, it might be something quite subtle. And I could play with the gain if I want a little bit, maybe give it a little bit of red in the gain. Let's see where we're at with that. Let's hit clips. So let's just copy that one over to here. Often when you're making a grade for a whole film, it's good to focus on a clip that you really like the look of, that's come out really well. So this shot in the sequence is probably the best one. So I'm going to focus making this teal and orange look on this clip in particular. Let's go across to nodes. So we've got the teal and orange going on. Let's pull that down. And also do find like a key moment in the video clip itself. So here when she's got a smile on is a nice place to edit. So let's have a little play around with this look. That's looking quite nice to me there. Very subtle split tone. And how about the gain? All right, I quite like that. Let's try something more intense just for a laugh. That's a bit of a stronger look. Let's go back to where it was, press C a few times. So yeah, I think that more subtle teal and orange is probably working better for me. Okay. All right, guys, at this point, I just want to introduce you quickly to a couple of tools that you may be interested in. We're going to have a look more at these tools at the end, but just very quickly, if you've got something like this, it does give you access to adjust the lift and the gamma at the same time. So when you're making a split tone, it can speed up the process and give you maybe a little bit more power in doing two things at the same time. So it is a useful tool. But when it comes to wedding filmmaking, often we're just going to make one color grade and then we can apply that to multiple films once we've locked it in. So it's not essential, guys. It just saves you a bit of time and gives you a little bit more power. But we'll talk about this more at the end. And guys, there is a sort of cheaper option that you can get, which is called the tangent ripple, and it also gives you the ability to do those. And the nice thing about this is it's relatively cheap and it's very small, so I could have it above my keyboard quite easily. but it does lack a lot of the functionality of the DaVinci device, which gives you access to a lot more features. So I can recommend maybe skipping this if you can afford to and just jump straight to the DaVinci Micro Panel. Alright guys, so now that we've made the first part of this look, we need to do a correction. So let's click on the node before and label that look correction. And so guys, when we make a look, it's nice to try and keep the whites at exactly white and the blacks at exactly black. So we can see in her hair and jumper, where we want that to be kind of black, we're getting quite a lot of blues. The blues are quite raised. And the whites seem okay to me. They seem to be quite well balanced. So all we want to do is let's zoom into these sort of areas that we kind of want to be black. And in this correction, I'm going to pull this shadow area away from blue probably. And now we've got that black. And we can see down here, this green and blue has balanced out. We've got black look. So let's just zoom out. All right, so we've made the correction and we've got that teal and orange look. Let's try it all disabled. And then put it back on. There we go. We've got a slight sort of filmic look going on. It's subtle, it's tasteful. I think that's looking great. Okay guys, so that's a great first step. Let's now have a little look at the color warper again to see if perhaps taking out some of these colors could give us a more filmic look that we like. So let's press Alt S. We've got another node. Let's label that warp color. And now let's experiment, maybe take out some of these colors. Take out a few greens. Do we want to take out blue? Oh, doesn't seem to be doing too much, that blue. Try the purple. Yeah. Undo that red shift. And guys, let's turn on our vector scope so we can see this skin line. And at the moment, it is focused quite nicely on that. So we can tell the skin tones are actually looking quite good. All right, so we've got a nice little color warp adjustment. I feel the reds are a bit too saturated actually. Let's pull that back a little bit. Okay, that looks good. All right, so let's see what we did with that. It's a very subtle adjustment actually, guys. But I think it's quite nice. So again, I'm happy with that. Again, guys, subtlety is often the way with these things, so quite happy with that look so far. Right, let's give ourselves a little bit of space, and we're going to add one more Alt S. So guys, we did have a look at these curves before, and just remember we had a look at the curves specifically looking at the skin tones. Let's see if we want to have a little play with these for any other just sort of basic look creation. So I'm going to hit these buttons to add a few points. So we've got hue versus hue, just have a little play. I don't want to play with our skin tones much. Greens, not really seeing much there. Blues. Don't really want to change the blues. So I might not change any of the hues per se. Let's have a look at the saturation now. So Now we're not changing the color, but we're changing the amount of color in that area. So let's have a look. Pull yellow up and down. I don't really want to change that because that's affecting her skin a bit. It's okay. I could take a little bit out, to be honest. Maybe a little bit. Right. Yellows, green. Turquoisey colors, blues. Okay, that's fine. And then luminance. Let's hit these all on again. Don't want to change the luminance levels anywhere. Not having much effect. No, I think the luminance levels are fine. And luminance versus sat, sat versus sat. No, I don't need to change any of that. So guys, we've got our first basic look, which is nice. Obviously, we can adjust the primary still, so we can add a little bit more saturation, contrast, temperature. That's all fine. Let's check the parade. So the blacks are quite low here. I may want to raise those blacks a little bit. Let's see. Let's try these wheels a little bit. Okay. Let's try the shadow, the low soft. So we can have a more contrasty image or a more soft image. That's quite nice. So guys, let's watch this image through. Okay guys, so that's our first color grade. It's probably a good idea to try a few variations of that before committing to anything. And before we do that, I want to introduce you to the log curves, adjusting the color using the log function. Basically, it allows us to be a little bit more precise so we can tweak specific areas of the image, maybe do a little bit more precise correction without adjusting the whole image. So in the next video, that's what we're going to look at. See you there. Hey guys, so in this video we're going to have a quick look at the log function and the HDR wheels and just check out the low and high soft again. So I've reset the colors on this image and I just want to show you how if we hit log versus if we hit the normal color wheel, things change. So let's pop out this waveform. You can see in the normal curve, if we lift the blacks, we do lift quite a lot of the color. It's not really just affecting the blacks. There's also a lot of movement in the midtones and a little bit in the highlights, not so much. Look, the highlights stay fairly similar. We're getting the most movement in the dark regions, but we do get quite a bit of movement in the midtones. However, if we hit this log button and we do the same thing, now we are much more focused just on the lower parts of the image and the highlights and the midtones are getting locked off. So I can adjust the black point without affecting the other parts of the image. And that's also quite useful for adjusting the colors as well, guys. So guys, let's make another teal and orange look. Let's go back to our normal color wheels, drag the gamma up, and then pull the gain down. Maybe we'll go over to the log and now try adding a little bit more red in the log. So we're just affecting a more subtle area of the midtones. And then try pull that down a bit. Okay. We could try a little bit more red. Okay, that's quite nice. Let's have a look at highlights in log. A little bit there. So guys, the log wheel appears to give us a little bit more fine detail in choosing the colors, whereas if we're in the normal color wheels, it's much more severe when we stretch it. Don't forget, we've also got these dials here where we can just choose a little bit. We can also use them in the log, so I could add blue in the midtones or take it away. Add some more red, maybe. Okay. Let's have a little look here. Sweet. Okay. Just pull that across a little bit. Let's see. Okay. Just quickly check my vector scope. And we're quite close. We are a little bit towards red, but I'm quite happy with that for this. I could try putting it down a little bit, but I'm quite happy with a more red tone. And then, so let's go into the look correction, guys. And now let's just zoom in. And look, those blacks are okay now. I think when we were just focusing on the log wheels, we weren't affecting the blacks too much. But if I wanted to just affect the blacks even more directly, we can use the log wheels here. And I can change the color of the blacks here. And I'm not going to affect too much of the other colors. So look guys, I can see these sort of colors all beginning to match at the bottom. A bit more spread out. They see the reds are a bit lower. Now they're sort of getting a white layer at the bottom. Okay, so black should be pretty black now, and they do look black. Let me have a look at the primaries again, because it could maybe drop it a little bit. I'm using the log wheels to do the exposure a little bit more fine tweaking. Okay guys, so I'm quite happy with that as an option. I'd still probably make a couple more. And for this one guys, I'm probably gonna just plug in my color balls here, because that will allow me to work a little bit faster. And let's see, so I can try something a bit more drastic that I wouldn't try if I was just using the mouse. Okay, so just something quickly there, guys. I probably wouldn't call that my finished image. I'd probably reduce the saturation a little bit. And check my vector scope. I could pull the midtones a little bit away from red. I could pull the color warper a bit away. Let's try that. No, that's good. Right there. Okay, and then look correction. How the black's looking. Let's pull out the parade. And the blacks seem quite well mixed at the bottom. And I can see looking at this, it does look quite black. So maybe that's fine. Okay. So that's, again, a kind of not too intense look. Play around with it a bit. Okay, so I'm quite happy there, guys. That's another one. Okay, guys, so that's just the introduction to using log and just show how it can help you like fine tune specific areas of brightness in your image in relationship to color. If we look at these curves, these low soft options, let's pull up the waveform here. So the low soft is also just affecting the very bottom bit without affecting this. So it's kind of like the log wheel again. And guys, I can also select specific colors. So if I wanted to put some green in the low soft, I can put green, blue, red. And the same is for high soft. I'm just pulling red out of the highlights. So guys, there's quite a few ways to play around with that. So you can either use the log wheels, you can use the soft clip option, and it all gives you a very similar way of just applying like a more fine tweak to your color grades. Hope that helps, guys. We're going to start making a few more color grades and crack on. Copy, paste. So I've got 2 extras. Maybe in this one, I'm going to throw the teal and orange to be a bit more intense. Let's do the correction. Let's put a little bit more red to warm up a little bit. Let's have a look at the next one. Let's try a more yellow and blue. Oh, that's quite good as well. Let's check the blacks. And maybe let's bring the blacks all the way down. Let's bring the mid detail up a bit. She's not got wrinkly skin anyways, so it doesn't have to be too soft. All right. So we've got 3 looks here. 1, 2, 3. I quite like number 3. Okay guys, so I'm fairly happy with the way this third look is going, but I want to play with it a little bit more. Let's copy and then paste a couple more. Now let's go back to the color page. So I just wanted to show you guys one thing. That's the HDR color wheels. Let me take the clips off. Take the effects off. So these are the normal color wheels. The HDR ones give us access to dark and specular, so we can affect the very lightest and very darkest and the blacks here. So it gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels. And I think if we press here, you can sort of choose the levels a little bit more. But let's just go with their defaults and let's look at the black range in particular. So that's fine. So let's look at the look correction. So far we took just the lift down, but let's say we want to undo that. And now we've got the previous teal and orange look from here and no correction. So the blacks are way into blue. But say I want to be more focused on just hitting the blacks rather than affecting the shadows. I can use this black wheel in the HDR and then I'm going to pull that away from blue till her jumper's coming more black. And I need to go into the dark because it's not pulled all of it. So I'm going to go to dark. Obviously it was in dark. So now we've left more of the blues in the mid-tones and we've just done the blacks, which might be a little bit more accurate. Okay. And so let's then go back to the teal and orange look and maybe go back to the normal color wheels. Maybe let's experiment by putting a little bit more red in there. Proceed to undo that, and then I'm gonna maybe try a different blue level. So I quite like it there. Let's just make sure we got it on the smile bit. Here we go. So let's compare that to the other one. Yes, I feel that's a little bit more subtle and a little bit more refined. Let's try a little modification of the fourth. Let's copy and paste. See, now let's load the color warper. Now let's try taking a bit more color out of it. Let's take a bit more blue out. And now we're kind of into the black and red space. We are a little bit off skin heading towards red, so we could consider just pulling this red saturation point over a little bit towards skin tones and just below the saturation level. I'm fairly happy with it around there. So I want it just a little bit above the skin tones towards red, but nothing too drastic. Let's see how that looks compared to this. Okay, so in this scene, I quite like this blue and yellow tone. But let's check out how it looks for the rest of the film. So let's replace all these with that. So looking at these other clips, I feel like we've gone a little bit too far into the blue. This one's quite nice. So let's try another one. Let's try one of the more desaturated ones at the end. I don't think that's quite working either. So let's try the second grade with the others. It's looking a bit better. Hey guys, so I hope that was a good introduction to some of the more fine color grading tools. We looked at the log wheels and we looked at the HDR curves and we looked at adjusting the high and low soft on the curve. So guys, you may need to re-watch this video a couple of times just so that all sinks in. There's quite a lot of information there. And guys, we did find that even though we had a hero image, perhaps it wasn't being very representative of the whole film. Perhaps there was too much bokeh, not enough background. And we played with a few color grades and we found one that worked well for that image, but it turned out it didn't work so well for the rest of the film. And actually some warmer tones were working better with indoor shots and probably outdoor shots. So guys, just remember, don't get too caught up on just editing one clip. Make a variety of different color grades, try them on a few different clips, and then when you found that one color grade that's working for your film, then maybe fine tune it a little bit more, do those corrections with those tools and dig down into that. So guys, we tried those blue and yellow tones. It looked great for that one image, but for the rest of the clips and the rest of the wedding film, it was a little bit too cold. So now I know what I need is warmer tones. So I'm gonna try to make one more color grade. I'm not gonna use the micro panel because that was kind of cheating, but we're gonna do one more and we're gonna move on from there. So we'll do that in the next video. See you then.